right, good morning. I am Rena with Team True Grit, and today we are presenting the fundraising strategy that we created for Aldeas Infantiles SOS, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on promoting and defending the rights of children. So I'm going to kick things off by giving you a company overview, and then Kyle will go through our problem statement. Next, Brian will walk through our consultation framework, and then John, Maria, and Kirsten will go through our recommendations. And then I'll come back to close things out and give you our implementation strategy and costs. Now for our company overview. In Peru, 4 out of 100 girls and boys under the age of 14 do not live with either of their parents. 2 out of 100 children under the age of 5 face some type of abandonment. And 7 out of 10 women have experienced some type of violence from their husbands. However, according to the World Giving Index, Peru ranks 63 out of 133 countries for giving. Now, this all plays into Aldeas' mission, which is to create family environments for children in vulnerable situations to help them shape their own futures and participate in the development of their communities. So the first children's village was inaugurated in 1975, and since then, Aldeas has grown to include 12 children's villages throughout 9 regions in the country. So these villages act as a source of refuge for the children. They are provided with food, clothing, and shelter while living there, and they're in a safe environment. So now that I've given you a brief company overview, I'm going to hand it off to Kyle, who will go through our problem statement.
Thank you, Rena. And as Rena mentioned here, this is obviously a very worthwhile organization, and we're very excited to see how they want to use us as an MBA team to help them with their strategy. So the first thing they brought up with us when we met with them was they're going to start losing their funding from their global headquarters in Austria in 2021. And by 2025, they're not going to receive any funding from their global headquarters. And this is because a lot of that funding is going to places in Africa and Asia now, because Peru is considered a growing nation at this point. So they said they needed a fundraising strategy from us with 2 focus points. One is to increase the revenue from other sources, such as digital platforms and social media, which they're currently not tapping into enough. And they needed to net an annual 3 to 4 million US dollars before 2021. And I'll show you where that figure comes from here. They're receiving right now 5 different sources of funding. So everything from their plans on the streets to get just cash from donors or big time government entities. But I want to focus right here on this international subsidies part. So this is the part right now that they're going to lose in the next few years. This is their current funding they're receiving from their headquarters, and this is going to be completely going away by 2025. So this is a big bulk of their revenue source, and we needed a way to basically make up for this so that they can keep their current operations going. This gives you a sense of how they've been doing over the last 5 years. You can see it's actually a pretty good trend in the number of donors they get each year, and also their average donation per donor. These are good things. It shows that they're doing a lot, and they're doing probably as much as they can right now to keep this trend going. But this is still very short of their goal to hit 3 to 4 million per year additional. And so when we broke it down, what we said we needed to do for them was to hit 2 goals. One is to increase the number of donors from 32,000 to 40,000, and also increase their giving per donation from $150 a year to $180 per year. And with doing this, this will hit a minimum level of $3 million extra per year for them. With that, I want to hand it over to Brian to talk about our consultation framework.
Thanks, Kyle. So our consultation framework was our team's approach to how we organize and analyze the data that we researched. And we chose a strategic plan model because of the way that nonprofits are organized and how they do business. So our consultation strategy has 5 key elements. First was to conduct a market overview. We thought that our consultation framework should reflect the external environment. So we got an understanding of Peru, its economy, the culture, and their challenges. Next, we analyzed the company's current culture. We gathered information from headquarters staff, community liaisons, and other nonprofits. And we were able to narrow the scope down so they can focus on digital fundraising. Then we developed recommendations by leveraging best practices, and we presented them to Aldeas during our visit. And based on the feedback, we chose the 3 most impactful and 3 best options to implement. And finally, we created a path forward by developing an implementation plan for the 3 top recommendations. Now I'll take us through a summary of the SWOT analysis for Aldeas. Their strengths are that they have a huge regional impact for impoverished families. They have an energetic team and a strong volunteer base. Their weaknesses are they have is an inadequate messaging and awareness, and their website does not have global functionality. Some opportunities are to incorporate university partnerships, take advantage of changing donor population with the growing economy, and lastly, the threats are government instability and a reduction in international funding. So our recommendations address 3 objectives. 1, to get people to the website. 2, to keep them donating. And 3, to keep the cost down. Now John will cover our first recommendation.
Thank you, Brian. Our first recommendation is for Aldeas to globalize their digital platforms. They first must get people to the website and have a seamless, easy, seamless online giving experience. As Rena mentioned earlier, Peru is ranked 63 out of 133 countries. Because of this, it is important that Aldeas is able to receive international donations. The list provided here are the top 10 giving countries according to the World Giving Index. As you'll notice, 7 of the top 10 countries are English speaking, and of those that donate, 66% prefer donating online or through a mobile application. For their online viewership, Aldeas only has 156,000 unique visitors per year. Now let's compare that to the international Aldeas website that has a total of 1.14 million unique visitors. Out of all the people that visit their website, only 13% visit via social media. Aldeas only has a total of 118,000 followers. Now let's compare that to National Breast Cancer Society in St. Jude, which maxes out at almost 6 million total followers. Now let's see how, the next steps, we will take a quick view on how Aldeas can increase their followership and capture the hearts of their donors along the way. As you'll notice from the pictures provided, Aldeas does not have an English version. In addition to that, donations are not allowed internationally. The same could be true for the smartphone version, but in addition to that, the website is not optimized for smartphone use. In addition to that, the donate button is not even visible. The same could be true for their social media. For Facebook and YouTube, Spanish is the only language available and English is not available. The link to the home page is not even visible, and it takes multiple steps for you to donate. Lastly, the social media influencers are not on the forefront of their online campaign. Maximizing your influencers as well as your sponsors create overall excitement for your cause, as well as your social media follower growth, both internationally and domestically. As you'll notice, some key influencers that Aldeas has includes Alexandra Grande, who's the current Karate Gold Cup winner and has over 10,000 followers, and Payless Shoe Store, which has over 600,000 followers on Facebook. Maximizing these key influencers, as well as others, could increase overall excitement for their cause and ultimately increase donations yearly. Next up, we have Maria, who will be discussing our second recommendation.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. So John just talked to you about how by globalizing Aldeas' digital platforms, we're going to get more people coming to the website and social media sites. So I'm going to talk about once we get them, how do we keep them excited and engaged and keep them wanting to donate? And we recommend Aldeas do this through enhancing their storytelling capabilities. Now, why does this matter so much? Well, we learned when we were in Lima and we visited Aldeas that they actually have this misperception of their brand. They think everyone knows who they are in Peru, and we found that not to be the case. There's a lot of people that have never even heard of Aldeas. So by enhancing their storytelling, they can create more awareness of their brand and encourage more people to donate because now they understand the value that Aldeas is bringing to these communities. So there's a couple of sub-recommendations underneath this. And the first one that we recommend is that Aldeas creates a child-led documentary series. So what we did was we looked at St. Jude as an example here, because in 2010, St. Jude's revenue was actually flatlining, and they realized they needed to turn things around quickly. So what they did was they talked to a lot of their followers, and they realized that they really appreciated authenticity. So St. Jude stripped out all the scripts, and they just took the cameras in the hospital rooms and filmed the children and the families that they were supporting and got them to tell the story. And that really resonated with people, and they saw a huge spike in their donations. So while St. Jude is, of course, a lot larger and based in the US, Aldeas can still learn a lot from this example just by introducing that authentic messaging. So they can just hand a camera to a child and have them tell the story about who they are and how their village has really helped their lives. So you can see here we have a couple of ideas. So Rena shared with you that Aldeas has 12 villages across Peru, and that lines up perfectly to the 12 months of the year. So each month a village can be featured and tell their story. Along with that, the month that a village is featured, we also recommend that they share a success story that came out of that village. So as an example, when we visited the Callao village, we were told about a story of a little girl who grew up in that village and went on to become the chef of the Peruvian soccer team, which is a great story they need to highlight on their page. Also, they shared with us that Aldeas had 81 graduates last year, and those students are now going on to become things like lawyers and chefs and social workers. And when you consider in Peru the fact that people in lower socioeconomic classes typically don't go on to receive higher level education, that's a stat that has impact. They really should be displaying that on their site and their social media websites. And lastly, the next sub-recommendation underneath storytelling is we believe Aldeas can learn a lot from MedLife. You're all familiar with MedLife. MedLife is the organization that took us on that service learning trip to Pamplona, where we got to see firsthand the severe poverty that is a reality for many Peruvians. And what's interesting about that is in a follow-up conversation with Kiki from MedLife, she shared with me that they don't actually spend money on marketing. That is their marketing. They take people on those service learning trips, and then people are able to see the impact that they're bringing to communities and reach back out to MedLife and say, wow, what an amazing thing you guys are doing. How can I keep helping? So MedLife then shares a flyer like the one you're seeing on the screen, and then those people go and spread the word. Those passionate supporters are doing the work for MedLife, and that's how they've grown organically. So Aldeas can do the same thing and follow in those same footsteps. We were privileged enough as True Grit to go and visit one of the villages and see the value that they're bringing, but that's not a common practice for Aldeas. So we recommend that they follow MedLife's example here and learn from them and start doing more of these education excursions to teach people by showing them this is what we do and this is the value we bring to our communities. Additionally, we do recommend that Aldeas spend just a little bit of time to create these simple one-page flyers to educate people on all their great work. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kirsten to talk about our third and final recommendation.
So as we mentioned, our recommendations really drive three objectives. You heard John and Maria talk about getting people to the website and keeping them donating. The third recommendation is all about keeping costs low in order to support those other two recommendations. And we suggest that Aldeas partner with multiple universities to enlist the help of students similar to our consultation work with Aldeas. That way they can offload these small scope projects and be able to get the tasks done to support digital web enhancement. Now, we researched several South American universities that have MBA level programs that will focus on issues that are pertinent to Aldeas. For example, we have a Master's of Social and Youth Issues, Master's of Urban Habitat and Poverty, as well as a Master's of Digital Humanities, which again will really support those first two recommendations. Now, in order to complete this recommendation, there are some tasks that Aldeas will have to complete. The first is to build out those limited scope projects. These should be short-term projects that are easy to offload to the students with little oversight and little capacity needed from Aldeas. Additionally, they will need to continue to identify which universities they can partner with. We did speak with Austral Group, and the reason we did this is because we identified these South American universities, but as you've heard, the English-speaking countries they're much higher in the World Giving Index. We also found that they are more likely to provide internships or school credit for free work that's done. That's not necessarily something that you find in the South American culture. Austral Group did say they are going to keep Aldeas on their roster, so as long as Aldeas continues to provide these small scope projects, they will continue to present those projects to universities. That way they can capture the South American universities and English-speaking universities. They will also need to know how to contact these universities and communicate with impact, their purpose, their experience, and the benefits to the students. So this goes back to Maria's recommendation that they create that one-page document that they can quickly be able to communicate their purpose. Now, these recommendations do have some risks. There would be incremental costs for website enhancement and the enhancement of the storytelling. There's also the risk of a lower quality of work, not a lot of control over that quality if they're passing it off to multiple students from multiple universities. However, the benefits of these recommendations is that they will now be recognized on a global platform, which will get more people to the website. And with that emotional connection from the storytelling, they're more likely to increase those individual donations. And they would be doing so by keeping costs low by enlisting that free help from the universities. So we do feel that the benefits of these recommendations far outweigh the risks involved. So with that, I'm going to invite Rena back up to talk about our implementation plan and our costs.
Okay, so for a summary of our implementation, I'm just going to keep this very high level for the sake of timing. So we did this for all three of the recommendations and broke it out into 4 different phases. The first being planning and design. The second phase is execution and development. Then you have deploy and launch. And then finally, we have refine, iterate, and aftercare. Next, we have our implementation costs. And to determine these costs, we took the different components and broke them out into 3 different categories. The first 2 categories will not incur any incremental costs, and the first one being the in-house cost, which is covered by the current Aldeas staff. And the second one is volunteer costs, which is covered by the university partnerships that Kirsten mentioned. So now we're going to focus on outsourced costs. And the categories to the right are what falls into this section. So for an initial investment of $130,000 and an annual upkeep of $108,000, we believe that Aldeas can implement our recommendations and they will have an investment payback between year 1 and 2. So Maria mentioned to you that we were able to visit one of the children's villages, and we were blown away by the work that Aldeas is doing in these communities. They are really impacting the lives of these children by providing them with the education and food, shelter, clothing. And they are doing a lot of work with the families as well, such as empowering the mothers and teaching them what their rights are. So we know that when mothers are empowered, this can transform an entire community. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time. We'll now open the floor for questions.